Hello, people. This is Mac. I was in on a very interesting call the other day, a video called by Dr. V.A. Shiva, Ayyadurai. And just to give you a little information about Dr. Shiva, that's what we call him. That's what he goes by. Dr. Shiva is the inventor of email and polymath, and he holds 4 degrees from MIT. And he is a Fulbright scholar, and he's was the first outstanding scientist and technologist of Indian origin. And he's a Westinghouse Science Talent Honors Award recipient and a nominee for the U.S. National Medal of Technology and Innovation. How I first met Dr. Shiva was during the pandemic, and I've been a follower and supporter of his projects since. He likes to get people involved with system analysis, and he teaches that in his program. If you would like to join that program at vashiva.com, and he shows you how the world elites and others in this world utilize system to control the masses. But he came up with this particular discussion that he had a couple of days ago. Who are the real white supremacists? Time for conversation beyond left and right. And you know, it's amazing that he had that discussion, because I dealt with friends and family as to wanting to know why I supported Trump. They were mostly all Democrats. Well, I consider myself as an independent. I've been a Democrat or a liberal or whatever they call themselves most of my life, until I saw what was happening during the Obama administration and what they were trying to do to this country. But there's no real difference, I come to find later, between Democrats and Republicans. They all answer to the same boss. Here, Dr. Shiva talks about the white supremacists, the people who create the turmoil and instability in this country and around the world, are the elitists. Some people call them the Illuminati. Others call them the skulls and bones of the Masonic order, and some even call them Zionists. But I think they're all the same people, but just with different names, so it make you hard to be able to recognize them or to put them in a box, so to speak. But they all the same. And this is what he talks about, the elitists, and how they pit blacks against whites, and blacks and whites against each other and other races as well. So I'm not going to go into everything that he discussed, but I do want to play some excerpts from his discussion and let you decide on that. And we'll come back at the end of this. So sit back and listen to this, and after you listen to it, you should go to his YouTube handle at V.A. Shiva, and check him out. just YouTube, just search for VA Shiva or Dr. Shiva, and you will see his YouTube channel. And at that point, you can listen to this discussion in its entirety, and you'll get the full context of what he's saying.
Both wings of the establishment, the left and the right, really do not want to have this discussion. They want to use white supremacy as a way for the white supremacists to get away with their white supremacy. It's very interesting. And divide black people and white people, people of all races. Let me repeat that again. The real white supremacists want to get away with their white supremacy. And they do not want to have this discussion. So maybe a brown-skinned person who's experienced real white supremacy, and most of my friends are whites, okay, is probably the best person in this point in history to open this discussion. So that's what I'm excited about. And I hope we have this conversation about it. And one of the things I want everyone to do is to really listen to the process that we're going to go through. And it's a very deeply personal thing for me. And it may be very emotional for me because I have actually been repressed from having this conversation for years. And John will tell you about this. So that's what we want to have. And I've been called a white supremacist. And John, you've been called a white supremacist. Am I right, John?
That's correct.
Right. John's been called a white supremacist. I've been called a white supremacist. Okay? Okay? So, to all of you, you have to understand, I've been on both sides. I've been called a white supremacist by the real white supremacists. So let's really now have left, right. I want all of you to participate in this conversation. It's going to be a historic conversation. So let's go into this. So, who are the real white supremacists? Time for a conversation beyond left and right. And as many of you know, when I put this out, I put a tweet out, and I said, anyone who gets upset, and listen very carefully, who has a visceral, instinctual upsetness, uncomfort, when they see a picture of this brown immigrant kid in Newark, New Jersey, inventing email, the very thought of that, if you have a visceral reaction to that, you are a white supremacist, and you can be of any color. There are a lot of Indians in India who are actually white supremacists. In fact, I don't know if you know, there is more skin whitening stuff sold in India than even Coca-Cola. Those people are white supremacists. Okay? So, just want to let you know that we want to there are some people who see this brown immigrant kid's picture with and they just have a visceral reaction. And that is what we want to probe, and we want to reflect on that. That's what's called implicit bias. Where is that coming from? And even if they were laid out all the facts, the very thought of that bothers them. Okay? Go into this. First of all, how do the white supremacists define white supremacy? Okay? Can you see this, John? And Julie? This is a definition. I just looked it up in the Merriam-Webster. White supremacy. The belief that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should have control over people of other races. And then they do this interesting thing. The alt-right is a reactionary conservative movement. It is characterized by an embrace of fascism, white supremacy, and misogyny. So now they basically said that they're basically targeting working class poor whites with that commentary. Okay? And they're not talking about the white supremacists who we're going to talk about, the few, the bold, the supreme at Harvard University and places like that. So they're just saying the white supremacists are these alt-right people. And then the second one they say is the social, economic, and political systems that collectively enable white people. You see, very clever. Collectively enable white people. They're not talking about the multiracial aristocracy, predominantly whites at Harvard. They're saying all white people to maintain power over other races.
You notice how they talk about systems there, which is very interesting. You'd think that
and it says, William Kelly turned his considerable intellect and imagination to the question of what it is like to be white in this country and what it is like for all Americans to live under the condition of white supremacy. So they are basically saying, very cleverly, that all white people are white supremacists. Right? To hide the real white supremacy. So this is a very, very clever definition. So in the dictionary written by some real true white supremacists at Harvard, they have basically said all white people are basically white supremacists. And that the alt-right, a smaller group of people, which is not the small group at Harvard, they're the ones who are the true white supremacists. So I just want to emphasize that in the mainstream definition, all white people collectively, because they have power predominantly over the world, that they're all white supremacists. All right? Exactly. And some says they have black people believing it. And that is precisely the goal. To divide in this very fucked up definition of white supremacy to get black people and white people fighting. All right? But I just wanted to let you know that this is the official definition that kids are learning. Okay? Now, let me give you, as someone who has actually been called a white supremacist and actually endured white supremacy, the real definition, as someone who's not been sort of mentally masturbating at Harvard University writing crap and doing all these nuances, okay? Here's the definition. White supremacist, this is what it is. A weapon of the liberal elites to divide black and white people of all races to cover up their day-to-day economic exploitation of all people. Let me read that again. This is what a real white supremacist, or white supremacy is. A weapon. It's a weapon. A white supremacist is literally a weapon who comes from the liberal elites to divide black and white and people of all races to cover up their day-to-day economic exploitation of all people. And by the way, being white is not a prerequisite of being a white supremacist. All right? So just look at that definition. We're really saying that the white supremacist, or white supremacy, is actually a weaponry that's used. So you say this enough to a bunch of poor working class kids. You're a white supremacist. You're a white supremacist. You're a white supremacist. John, what did you say happens to them when they hear that over and over again?
What happens to young white people when they're constantly called white supremacists and they go out of their way to try to prove, no, we're not white supremacists, and then but they still get called it no matter what, they're just shoved into that box. What happens is some of them essentially give up and say, okay, I guess we're white supremacists now, and then they'll go marching around with tiki torches and doing Roman salutes and saying, yeah, it's that group of people that's the problem, it's that group of people that's the problem. They get really, really resentful, but not actually, but they end up getting manipulated by the elites into becoming the exact boogeyman that they've sort of been shoved into the box.
Right, and then whenever those incidents occur, the real white supremacists love that because they can point to them and say, see those white supremacists over there.
Yep.
And then black people get enraged, and you have everyday working blacks and whites fighting against each other.
Yep.
So, all right. So once that's clear, let's go back to let me bring back Julie, okay? Mm-hmm. So this is a definition. Mm-hmm. What are you guys saying? It's a weapon of the liberal elites. So everyone listening, write this definition down. This is real white supremacists. To divide black and white people of all races to cover up their day-to-day economic exploitation of all people. Basically, white supremacy is a pillar of economic exploitation. And being white, by the way, is not a prerequisite, as we're going to find out. Okay? So the next thing is, white supremacists, the real ones, behave as follows. Declare that all progress is because of whites, all good things come from whites, and all great innovations come from whites. And these are the same people who are at places like Harvard, right? And the reason they need to do that is that they need to make sure that the working class whites feel a little more superior to their black working class brethren. So they're always feeling better, a little better. Maybe they get paid 10 cents more a little bit, and they keep people fighting. So they feed into one strata of society to make them feel, quote unquote, better. And that is part of the very interesting conundrum here. They feed this propaganda. But when you go and you really look at this, these white supremacists actually believe this. And I'm going to show you one of them, a guy called Walter Isaacson.
Wow. no one could explain what white supremacy is better than the way Dr. Shiva has explained it. And it's definitely a conspiracy in this country, I guess you want to call that, to manipulate the population. We saw it with the COVID, what happened there. And many of you could say it was real or not real, but it was definitely controlled by people at the top. Dr. Shiva calls them the elitists. Some people call them the Illuminati. Other people call it the Masonic Order or the Zionists. There's all different names out there that people call the one who are manipulating societies throughout the world. But I want each one of you to think about this. And matter of fact, you can listen to this complete presentation on Dr. Shiva. That's VA Shiva. He also has a website, vashiva.com, but you can listen to it on YouTube under Dr. Shiva. And you could get a good understanding of what he's talking about when you listen to the full context of his presentation. But for sure, I want each one of you to think about what you just heard and discuss that with me in the comments section as to what you think is the real white supremacist. Do you agree with the things that Dr. Shiva has noted here? Or do you not? But I'd like for you to get back with me in the comments section. Let me know. In the meantime, subscribe. Appreciate it, and have a great day.